Welcome to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. It is fantasy baseball season around here, folks, for the next 2 hours. Talking lots of baseball here. Spring training games underway on Friday in Florida and Arizona, and on Saturday as well. Everybody on the field this weekend. George, great to be with you here. Once again, we're going to do some team previews, look at some division previews, some also key injuries in fantasy baseball already this early in the season. Of course, we're getting a couple of those. Talk about some players changing positions as well. And we're off and running here. I got invitation to a draft that I'll be participating in starting up in a couple of weeks too. So, season is kind of getting underway here. And once the games begin, there's no stopping until October.
It's literally fantastic. I'm a big baseball fan. Can't wait. You mentioned we're getting, setting up for our drafts and my home leagues in a couple of weeks here. The season starts March 18th, right? It's not late March, not the first week in April anymore. It's March 18th with the Cubs and Dodgers here. So it's time to get ready. And, just like football, I prefer to draft as late as possible so we get all these injuries out of the way.
Yep.
I want to draft before the Cubs and Dodgers. I know some people like to draft after. I don't like that, all right? That's the first game. That's when I want to draft by. But I guess we get drafted in the 20s, March 25th or whatever. That's okay. Sure. But I want to get done before March 18th. But yeah, it's an exciting time of year. So I look forward to it, Craig. Can't wait to start our draft season.
Yeah, and as George mentioned, the 18th is when the International Series begins, but the 27th is opening day here in the United States for Major League Baseball. All right, let's get to our top stories here. And before we dive into some of the news and notes, we did get a big piece of information yesterday, George, and it's not the one that you want to hear. And I'm going to guess most people have not drafted yet, so it will not have affected them, but it definitely will affect the average draft position of Texas Rangers young outfielder Wyatt Langford, a very hot name, of course, last year. And now, George, going into this year as well, the Dallas Morning News reported on Friday that he has an oblique injury and that basically the manager, Bruce Bochy, said he will be ready for opening day. You and I, George, have been down this road before. We've seen this movie. We've played this game. We've danced. Well, wait, how many cliches can I use? I don't know. I'm running out of them. There's concern. I mean, anytime there's an oblique injury for a player, there is concern. It's basically less than a month until the 27th of March. And I understand it is a long season, but I would guess that anybody who's getting ready to draft in March without seeing Langford play on the field is going to bump him down in the rankings. Has to be.
No choice, right? The two worst injuries for a baseball player are wrist, can't swing the bat, and oblique, because you can't really test the oblique without playing in a game and you're swinging full speed, and that oblique it's a really tough injury to heal here. I'm looking at it now, they say 5 to 7 days. Yeah, that's bold. All right. It won't be that. I'm not drafting him. I shouldn't say that because that's not true. I think where it comes down to now, if I had him pegged in round, for giggles here, round 7, well, now he's round 12, round 14. That's now I need Barnes. Yeah. Now I need it where he falls to like, all right, it's worth the shot here as my backup, 6th outfielder, whatever it might be. Fine, I'll do that. But I don't trust this injury. We see it too many times, Craig. Yeah, he comes back. Oh, he wasn't quite healthy. He wasn't quite there. He re-injured it. Now he's out 2 months. So I'm more than likely going to pass. But hey, if I play in 8 leagues, there's a chance I might have him in 1.
Yeah, it's just a tough injury for one of the nice up-and-coming players in Major League Baseball. But other headlines that happened this week, in case you missed it, as we recap and look ahead, it's what we do. Aaron Boone's going to be in New York, we think, for another couple of years. His contract was extended through 2027. George Springer is going to share the leadoff spot this season. That's a very important note for the high-powered Toronto Blue Jays. Will Jose Altuve play left field for the Astros? He said he would. If Alex Bregman came back, he didn't, and he's still kind of in left field. So that's an interesting one, too. John Means, former ace of the Orioles, signed with Cleveland. Don't know how much of a factor he'll even be, to be honest with you, this year coming off surgery. So let's go to Altuve here for a minute, George, because I know you don't like him. I know a lot of New York people don't like him, and the cheating stuff, a lot of people don't like him, too. But, I mean, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame, whether you like it or not, George. He's getting in. He's a Hall of Famer. He basically could choose to do whatever he wants at this point. He's been in the league for, 15 years, something along those lines. And Houston has some replacements for him at second base. And they did bring in Brendan Rodgers, interestingly enough, I thought this week. That was an interesting name that signed a non-roster invitee minor league contract. But unlike Rafael Devers, who doesn't want to move off third and who's not yet a Hall of Famer, Altuve is saying, all right, whatever's best for me is best for the team. What are your thoughts on Altuve making this move if he ends up doing it?
What we're hearing so far, right, it's February 22nd, so it's very early. but he hasn't taken any ground balls yet, right? It's all out working the outfield here. And you take that for what it means. Fantasy-wise, this is only good news for us, right? You still get the draft as a second baseman, a weaker position, but eventually he'll have outfield eligibility. Maybe that helps us out in at some point this season if you have a rash of injuries at outfield. So I guess that doesn't fantasy-wise doesn't bother me, right? I think it's just a little bonus here. I am, as you're sort of hinting at, I am curious. I thought when Bregman signed with the Red Sox that Altuve would go back to second base, but so far that's not the case. I think you said it perfectly. They have other guys who can play second base. Maybe they don't have other outfielders. So they feel that their team is better this way. How he's going to be in left field, I don't know. I don't think any of us we really haven't seen him out there. The left field is smaller than most parts of the Crawford boxes out there, although the fact that it's a square right angle thing and not more of an angular makes it a little bit tougher left field to play there. But they must feel their team is better that way. And you're right, I don't like Altuve. You'll never be able to convince me he wasn't wearing a buzzer. It's not the garbage cans, by the way, but the fact that he no, don't rip my shirt off, and then he gives that terrible excuse that my wife doesn't want to see me without a shirt. What the hell is that? You'll never be able to convince me of that. So that's the reason I don't like him here. But
I understand.
I'll give him his credit, Craig. The fact that he's willing, everything you said about it was correct. He's probably going to make the Hall of Fame. I can see some voters not voting for him if they believe me that he cheated, but everybody cheats. But I'll give him his credit because he is that good a player and he's willing to move to a new position where he could be theoretically embarrassed a couple of times. Yeah, I'll give him his credit here. And Rafael Davis is a whole nother situation. Boy, for a guy who's a terrible third baseman to say he won't move when your team would obviously be better if you did, that also tells me something.
Yeah, I thought some strange comments coming from Tristan Casas too, young player, basically. Not speaking for the team. I don't want to say that, but and give him credit, by the way, for putting his heart in his sleeve and saying everything that he wanted to say. But it was surprising for all of us to hear that. Yeah, Alex Bregman is going to be a second baseman. He's going to move. He's going to be fine. I'm like, man, Bregman's been in the league a lot longer than you, man. Like, let him speak for himself there on that one.
That's a matter of time.
I would say. Big Poppy made some. Yeah, we're going to do some buy or sell a little later in the show. We'll dive more into it. Mean signs with Cleveland. Andrew Heaney signs with Pittsburgh. George, that happened also late in the week. So he'll join the back end of Pittsburgh's rotation. We know who's at the front end of Pittsburgh's rotation at all. And then the Yankees on Thursday, they announced Aaron Boone gets a 2-year contract extension. And then on Friday, they announced that you can have little beards and mustaches for the first time ever. So I know it's not a fantasy story per se, but that did make a lot of social media commentary on Friday.
Yeah, well, nice for the Yankees to join the 21st century, right? It's silly that you couldn't have that. Listen, I don't care if you're ZZ Top out there as long as you can play and win games. If growing a beard makes you, or having dreadlocks, whatever it might be, long hair. Don Mattingly got yelled at back in the 90s when he had a little mullet going on the back there. It was just stupid. Yeah,
remember the Simpsons episode?
Yeah, the Simpsons. Yeah, it was it was a stupid policy. Really, just a stupid policy here. The Aaron Boone sign, people keep asking me. I keep telling you the same thing. It doesn't matter who the Yankee manager is anymore. All right, it's run by the analytics department. It's run by Cashman. Boone is very good with the media. He's very good with his teammates in the clubhouse of keeping everything together here. That's his job. That's his only job. He's bad, and he's a bad in-game manager. All right, he is. Everybody knows this. This is not shocking here, but that's not what Cashman cares about. Cashman cares about Boone letting him do his thing. That Cashman can make the lineup and do all that. The Yankees on the Cashman they'll never be another Billy Martin or Lasorda or Earl Weaver or any type like that. The Yankees aren't going to do that. Not on the Cashman. They want a guy who's pretty much a figurehead.
Well, George, I think said it best. I got nothing else to add on that, although I wouldn't have been as tough on Boone to get his 2-year deal. All right, we're going to do some team-by-team looks at the upcoming spring training season. We begin with the National League East. Up next, we'll do the Philadelphia Phillies and talk about this high-powered offense with a great pitching staff, too. What does it mean for fantasy baseball this season? We'll tell you next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We thought we would spend some time diving into the National League East today. We'll go all around the divisions. We got a lot of time to do it. We got a month till opening day, so that's where we begin here on the show today. And we, George, start with a team that underachieved a little bit last year. I think that's definitely fair to say. The Phillies were a team that I picked to go to the World Series last season, and they certainly fell short of that. But that doesn't mean from a fantasy perspective that they aren't loaded. In fact, they have a starting lineup 1 through 9 that are all pretty much going to get drafted in all leagues, maybe with the exception of you see the 6-hitter and the 8-hitter in Max Kepler, who came over from the Twins, and Brandon Marsh, who is somewhat of a platooner, George. But you look at the top of that lineup, and between Schwarber and Turner and Harper, Castellanos, Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto may not be the number 1 catcher in fantasy anymore, but he's still up there. And then you have Bryson Stott. I think he was playing with an injury all last season, was playing fantastic, and then he just kind of tailed off at the end of the season. But getting shares, as we would say, of Phillies is probably a good way to go as a high-powered offense.
Not to mention they play in a bandbox, right? A pretty small ballpark there as well. This team is loaded. Listen, the Dodgers are the best team in baseball. I think we all know that. Are the Phillies number 2? I mean, I think you can make that argument, Craig. The Phillies are the second best team in baseball here. So it's a good squad here. We're hearing noise that they might have Trey Turner batting first. And not Schwarber. We'll see how that works out. Not that changes things dramatically there. But I can sort of see that maybe a lineup do a little lefty-righty thing works out a little better if Turner's batting first rather than Schwarber. I don't really see it personally, but whatever. It's a very good lineup here. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, all going to be top picks. Schwarber's going to hit 1 million home runs. He's very, he's either hot or he's cold. He's either get 7 home runs in like 4 games or he's going to go 0 for 30. So he will drive you crazy. You have to wait that out. Castellanos, okay, he's probably more of an outfielder 3, outfielder 4. He's going to draft later. I was going to ask you about Realmuto, by the way. I think you said it. He's no longer a top catcher. I have him ranked more like 6, 7, which is hard to believe here, but he's not the guy he used to be. With all in all, they're going to score a lot of runs. Like the Philly lineup here, I don't have an issue with them. We draft pretty much any one of them. Maybe not Kepler. I think Kepler's probably the only guy I probably don't want unless I'm in a really deep league. Maybe an extra outfielder. I don't have much faith in him.
Yeah, I mean, never really came into his own with the Twins. Let's also not forget they have Johan Rojas, who does play a lot. So I would guess that he'll play sometimes when Marsh does not. Sometimes he'll play when Max Kepler does not. And by the way, Castellanos sometimes doesn't play the outfield. Sometimes he DHs and Schwarber plays the outfield, although it is rare. It does end up happening. And as far as, Realmuto is concerned, I mean, again, when you get to this age and you're still a catcher, and George, I think that JT is still going to catch for a number of years, but it wouldn't shock me eventually to see him move to another position, maybe first base, maybe designated hitter eventually. But yeah, I mean, look, they still have who was the number 1 or number 2 pick in fantasy last year, and Trey Turner, no longer the number 1 or number 2 pick like Ohtani or Bobby Witt Jr., but maybe that's where you jump in on the value, because if you extrapolate Turner's stats without being hurt, he's a 30-30 guy pretty much every season. 155 games for Trey Turner is a first-round pick in fantasy baseball, but he's dropped off just a little bit because of the injuries that he's had. I know he also reported late to camp. That really shouldn't matter because the games start this weekend. It's a really strong lineup that the Phillies have, and as George mentioned, 6-7 guys in this lineup. You really can't go wrong. As far as the starting pitching is concerned, it's another strength of the team, and they did add a starting pitcher this offseason as they traded for Miami's Jesus Luzardo. So to go along with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez came into his own last season and has become a star. They also have Christopher Sanchez there too, and so if we're doing the righty-lefty-righty thing, that's how that rotation would look. But, you know, it's possible Nola's number 2 and Wheeler's number 1 going into the season. But, you know, Philly's stacked from top to bottom. And, George, I think the Luzardo trade just kind of stamped home where they are. We really don't know what the future holds, but they're playing to win immediately. And this sort of is a great number 3 starter, I think, probably on this team, or a number 4 starter on this team. Luzardo always has a great name, but the numbers haven't always been there necessarily for him. He's really just had one fantastic season. The rest have just been kind of injury riddled. But easy trade to make when you're looking at a number 4, number 3 starter in your rotation.
Absolutely. All right. Now, I think when I look at Luzardo, I think, okay, good news. He finally goes to I said, I'm not trying to make fun of the Athletics or Marlins, not yet anyway, but he finally goes to a winning team, right? Goes to the Phillies, but you're also now pitching, for the most part, in a hitter's ballpark. You know, you're not pitching in the Coliseum or or Miami there. So, you know, it might take a little bit getting used to that, but you're going to get runs. You're going to get support here, so that should make you relax a little bit. It's hard not to like. It's deep, right? Wheeler's an ace, right? Up top. A top 5 starting pitcher in fantasy. I would have him ranked higher than that, but we'll give him top 5 so we can settle the arguments there. I do have some doubts about Nola. You know, and he scares me because I know I'm going to eat it a couple of times if I draft. He's going to have some bad games there. And you have the depth there: Suarez, Luzardo, Sanchez, Painter. Waiting for him, right? When's he going to be that guy? Let me ask you a philosophical question: when guys like this, when you drafted them, would you draft someone like Painter? And how many would you draft in a league?
You know,
I throw darts.
Yeah, no, I do too. I just think that with the trade of Luzardo, I mean, it stunted the growth a little bit there. It just shows you that Philly wants to win right now, and they're not going to wait, even if they have a top prospect to pitch. Is he going to start for the Phillies this year? 100%. These 5 names who we just showed you, how long are they going to be 1 through 5? I don't know. End of April, maybe May. I mean, this is the way baseball is. Guys get hurt. I don't wish that. It's just true. So sometime around April, late April, May, I mean, Painter's going to be in the rotation, George. I mean, that's it. So, you know, how he performs at that point is anybody's guess. Remember that other pitcher that they had that we were doing this with a few years ago? Was it Spencer Howard? Was that his name? Spencer Howard, right? He was like their top pitching prospect, didn't end up, you know, really amounting to very much with Philadelphia. So any rookie starting pitcher that has a rotation like this on a team that's built to win, I could probably pass, at least for the time being. One ad also we should mention, George, I don't know how you feel about this, but Jordan Romano is now on Philadelphia as well in the back end of that bullpen with some of the other names that they have. I just think that that's a name to keep an eye on because 2 years ago he was in that elite fake closer category, and then the wheels fell off after.
Well, they're one of the teams, by the way, you and I talked about this last week. Closers are dangerous, right? Could drive you crazy here. I think he's going to get closing opportunities at some point. He's hurt right now. But right now, I guess it's Strom. It's a situation where be careful. Whoever you're drafting in the Philadelphia closer may not be the guy who's closing in May. You know, so be very careful with the Philadelphia closing situation.
Alvarado always seems to be in the mix. I don't know how many years in a row this has been. All right, we'll talk Nats baseball next.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four, because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat, because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today as we continue to look at the National League East here on our show this weekend. And don't look now, but several years out of the rebuild and back to being potential contenders again, or at least very close, are the Washington Nationals. And yeah, I mean, it's been a tough few years. You trade Juan Soto and Trey Turner and a lot of other players, and Strasburg goes down and Corbin's career hits the end, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're going to lose 90, 100 games. Washington did, but they made some incredible trades. It's very specifically the Soto trade with San Diego has more or less made part of their lineup. So let's take a look here at their projected lineup courtesy of Fangraphs here. And you look at the top 1, 2, 3. I mean, those are three of the best young players in that division. CJ Abrams, who got to be more motivated based on what happened to him at the end of last year, being kind of shut down by the team for off the field stuff. Dylan Cruz, superstar in the making. Wood looks like a superstar in the making. Traded for Nathaniel Lowe, who's now been on several teams. Kind of wonder why that happens, George. It's like, what are we missing here that this guy's been on 3 teams in 4 years? Josh Bell is back with Washington. Garcia, coming off a huge year at second base, is there. And then you have a little bit of unknowns here, 7 and 8. Kyber Ruiz never really lived up to the billing that they thought when they made that deal with the Dodgers. Jose Tena and Jacob Young, who could steal a base for you every now and then, but he's always going to bat at the back end of the lineup. But a lot to like here, George. I'm seeing James Wood go super high this year in drafts. I'm seeing Dylan Cruz now all of a sudden go super high. But I think really the most polarizing figure has got to be CJ Abrams based on what happened last year. I know it's not really a fantasy story per se, but imagine playing in your fantasy baseball playoffs and you find out CJ Abrams was out late at night and they decided not to play the guy for the rest of the year and send him down to the minors. I know somebody who had him in their fantasy league, they're like, this is not right.
I know quite a few people who were angry about that. Yeah, I'd be flipping out. If I had, and all of a sudden, you may have lost your league because of it. I think what you said is correct. You have to think the motivation is there heavy for him, right? Listen, young people, sometimes you need a wake-up call, all right? I have a hard time thinking he'll ever do that again. Overall, I think this lineup is going to be, they'll hit. They're not going to score a million runs. They're not going to score what the Dodgers or the Phillies are going to score. But I don't think offense will be their issue. Bottom of the lineup, okay, that could be a problem. But I think they'll hit Abrams, Cruz, Wood. By the way, Wood, his home run total on FanDuel, I think was 17.5. I took the over on that. I think he crushes that pretty easy for a guy who can hit the ball out of any ballpark, anywhere. Or he hits balls and they're out to left field. So fantastic. I'll take that over there. Cruz and Wood. I think they're going to be fun to watch, Greg. I truly do. I think it'd be fun to watch here. I wouldn't want both of them on my team, but I certainly wouldn't mind one. I don't want to have both youngsters in case one does, sophomore jinx somewhat, even though neither one played a full season last year. Nate Lowe, what you said is correct. All right, he keeps bouncing around here. Guy who, if he plays, if he platoons someone, he should hit 25 home runs. Josh Bell's always a player I like. Another guy keeps bouncing around. Wish he'd get more of a shot there. But this guy at one point I wouldn't mind it with the Yankees with the nice little left-handed swing for Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, switch hitting player there. And a couple of players not mentioned here. Very specifically, the Nationals did last week sign Paul DeJong. And so if you're saying, is Jose Tena really the third baseman? Sort of, but Paul DeJong is there. And so certainly is going to play a factor. He got a major league contract. Let's also not forget Stone Garrett in the outfield, who also came up very hot at one point for Washington last season. As far as starting pitching is concerned, this is another strength of the team. I mean, they have 5 viable starters, George, going into the season. We haven't said that about Washington in a while. Gore, Irvin, Mitchell Parker, who came on strong, Trevor Williams, this guy's generally throwing 150 innings, and Michael Soroka on the back end there. And it's a pretty good park to pitch in. I know that there's going to be difficult games against Philadelphia and New York, without a doubt, and Atlanta. Those are tough games within the division. But Gore is, you feel very comfortable with him as your SP2, I think, in fantasy going into the season. And who knows what the other guys can deliver. It's a pretty good staff to me.
I think if I end up with Gore as my SP2, then I must have went heavy offense because I don't feel all that comfortable with him as an SP2. That being said, depends on what category. Playing quality starts, I do. If you play wins, I don't. So it's going to be those situations here, depending on how what your league is set up as. Same thing in a points league, if you're playing wins or QS. So listen, it's a solid staff. It's not spectacular. It's built really to keep you in games. I don't think Washington's going to be a terrible team. I don't. I think they're probably, I don't think they're going to be a good team. I don't know if they'll get to 81 wins, but 75 to 78 range, I think could be in their future here. It's an interesting team. It's building for the future. They got to keep it up here. So I like Gore, but I'd be more comfortable with this SP3, not 2.
Yeah, and from a fantasy perspective, saves a little bit up in the air, I think, for Washington, unless, some people think that Finnegan, who saved, I believe, close to 40 games for them last season, may end up just going back to Washington. 31 saves for Finnegan, Sam says, last year. He's a Nationals fan, still without a team. Really bizarre. All right, Braves are up next. Don't go away. I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter, and the league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fun a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. Let's take a look at the Atlanta Braves going into the season. My gosh, what a funny turn of events, George, if you think about it. 2 years ago, fans are saying my buddy Alex Anthopoulos is the genius. He's the best. How did he get all these guys to sign? They all have long-term contracts. I mean, how did he get these deals of $100 million and $50? I mean, everybody signed forever. And because they gave out all those contracts, George, and put them in a predicament this year that they can't really go out and do a heck of a lot. Now they're killing Alex Anthopoulos for it. I mean, this is the reason why they were able to do it. You can't go out there and just keep signing everybody. All of their players are now getting paid. They're all making millions of dollars on these long-term extensions. So the Braves, in turn, were quiet in the offseason. The only ad really of note was Jerks and Profar, and it really wasn't a significant one, but you'll see he'll probably bat at the top of the lineup there. They're going to hope that guys that had down years are back. You don't see Ronald Acuna Jr. in the lineup there, but he will be. They're hoping for better for Austin Riley. They're hoping for healthy for Michael Harris and for Ozzie Albies and for Sean Murphy. It was a wreck for injuries, George, for the Braves last season. I thought they made the best of it. Ozuna had a great year. Olsen was okay, but they say that there is something called regression. My guess is out of these 5 Braves that we're talking about, and we'll talk pitching, maybe we'll throw Strider in there too, but out of these 5 or 6 Braves that had down years, George, if 3 end up having the year this year that they were supposed to have last year, no one's going to be complaining. They're going to be just as good, if not better, than they were a year ago.
Once again, you and I are agreeing way too much on these last couple of shows. They were the voodoo doll team last year. I mean, Harris got hurt. Riley got hurt. Obviously, Acuna got hurt. Strider got hurt. I know Albies they all got hurt. I mean, it was weird. And they still made the playoffs, by the way. So I think it's really hard to complain about this team. I do think they might be overrated this season. I do. Mainly because tough division, right? Phillies, Mets, right there with you. And I don't know about your pitching staff. I don't know if Strider's going to be Strider this year. All right? I just don't know. Sale, can he do it again? And he found the fountain of youth last year, Greg. Maybe he can. Maybe he's back to being that guy with the White Sox and the Red Sox. Maybe he is, but I don't know about that. And then Lopez, also a guy. He had a much better year than I thought. Schwellenbach. I mean, wow. All right. I mean, he's getting criticized, and it was amazing what happened with all the injuries. And the pitching staff survived. I just don't know if he can do it again. And what can you get out of Acuna? What can you get out of Strider? Their first years back from these injuries, right? Acuna, when he tore the ACL last time, didn't have a great year the year after. It was the year after that where he had the MVP season here. Is he going to run this year? So there's a lot of questions about Acuna and Strider in my mind that I'd be very careful with this. But the team is loaded. I mean, it's loaded all over the place, right? So it should be a very, very good team.
Yeah, and I'm a buy on all of those low guys that you mentioned from a year ago. Statistically speaking, all had down years, especially Austin Riley. That is one name that I think will bounce back in a big way this season. And look at the lineup spot that he has. He's either going to bat 3rd or 4th, folks. And that's ahead of 2 guys who just got on base a ton last season. All right, as far as projected rotation, you will not see Spencer Strider listed because he will not open up the season with the team, but he'll pitch eventually. And George brings up a good point about Sale. I mean, he was so good last year. And by the way, so was Reynaldo Lopez until he got hurt. He was great also. And then, yeah, you're right, George. The back end of the team is, at least it seems like, that's where a lot of the fire is coming from the Braves fans. Like, why don't you go out and get Heaney like the Pirates did? Or why don't you go get Quintana like no one has done? Like, where is that 5th starter? Because are we really back to Ian Anderson? No disrespect to Ian Anderson again. We're kind of back there. Grant Holmes. Yeah, I mean, this is not really an inspiring starting 5, George. I'm going to guess, if I put my thinking cap on here, maybe this changes before we open up the season.
I mean, we're probably talking a trade then, right?
Or somebody's out there that hasn't signed. There's still some starting pitching.
Hey, would you like Marcus Stroman? I can find him for you.
Same division, ain't happening. Oh, no, not same division. That's right. Not Yankees this time. Gotcha. Yeah.
I doubt it, but the Yankees will give it to you for a song, right? A bag of balls and a bat if you want them. Listen, it is Anderson and Holmes. Although I can tell you, I'd rather give Anderson and/or Holmes a shot here. Listen, neither one is expected to pitch long term. As you said, Strider should come back late April, early May. All right, so one of them's gone anyway, so we'll see what they have here. Heaney, Quintana, neither one really would excite me here that I want to give them, the extra money that maybe you can hold on to for a trade midseason anyway. I said I don't mind them not signing what's there now. I think maybe they should have signed somebody earlier. I mean, Nick Pivetta went for a nice, not too big a deal with the Padres. I think that would have been a nice fit there. So I might have wanted to go somewhere that direction.
Ronald Acuna Jr. is a big polarizing figure in fantasy. He's not going, obviously, in the first round of drafts this year, but he was the MVP of fantasy baseball a couple of years ago with a WAR of 8.2 and 41 home runs. And then you have Spencer Strider, and you talk about him striking out a couple of years ago, 281 batters and winning 20 games. So, George, they're very different for fantasy purposes, but if you basically had to pick one of the two to count on for the season, and again, I understand it's where you draft. Like Acuna is probably going to go higher in every draft than Strider will, just because he's a hitter and Strider is a pitcher. But if you could only take one, who would it be?
Boy, that's a rough question.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
I got to talk to my agent. I am risk averse in drafts. All right, so I'm certainly not round 1, not round 2, probably not round 3. I want sure things here. Round 4 is when I'll start thinking about Acuna, not Strider, because I wanted Strider. Hey, you come back from TJ. Plus, are they going to baby him, Craig? Is he going to be on a pitch limit? Is he going to be on an innings limit here? When am I going to get the real Strider? Will it not be till July, August? Will I get him at all this year? So to answer your question, Acuna, round 4.
Acuna, you got to give me the Enya. Come on, man. I mean, how long have you been doing this? Acuna. Thank you. Jeez.
I'll give you something you can't quite see on TV right now.
Yeah, lift your hands up. Put them where we can see them.
I can't do that.
Okay, so bullpen-wise, real quick, Braves, let's go back to this. This is like an easy one, George. Like, I feel like we'll do 20 teams. We'll be like, we don't know who's going to get the saves. We know, right? This is the easy one with Rafael Iglesias, whose ERA, I believe, was under 2 last season. He was, like, amazing. And provided he holds up, he's in that. I don't think any closer is elite, by the way. I've said this a million times, but he is in that category of you feel good when you draft him, at least.
Yeah, that's really, I wouldn't call it elite. You feel good when you draft him. I think that's where Iglesias exactly.
Until he blows 3 saves and he's not the closer, and Pierce Johnson.
Then you're angry. Then you're angry anymore. Yeah, and so they're all crying for him. Although they don't have anybody in waiting, though, right? They just don't have
Pierce Johnson saved games with the Rockies a few years ago.
Iglesias would have to fall off a cliff, which, by the way, could happen. We see it all the time here.
They always
he had to fall off a cliff here. Listen, when it comes to saves, I said this last week. I like to draft one guy who I feel pretty good about. Iglesias is the guy I feel pretty good about. And he wouldn't be. He's not going to be your top 3 or 4 guys. He's probably the top 5, top 6 that gets drafted. So you probably got him a round or 2 later than everybody else, or maybe at the end of a run, which happens in a lot of drafts. Once one closer goes, here we go. Everybody gets nervous here and starts drafting their top closer here. So he is in that category for me. A guy, okay, I got my solid guy. Now my next guy will be pretty solid. Then my third guy is who the hell knows. We'll see what happens here. Maybe he keeps a job, maybe he doesn't.
So who's your favorite Brave going into the season based on ADP? I say Riley's mine.
I was going to say Riley, too, so you stole mine here.
Pick somebody else.
I love Matt Olson, but he's not by ADP. He's still going second round. I'm going to go Albies. Albies is dropping for some reason. I know he gets hurt every damn year, but when he's healthy, he hits.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least 2020. But yeah, I mean, it's so crazy how many injuries they had last season. And I understand, look, Braves, they want to be active. But, like, I just don't know, George. Like, they literally signed every player. And every player is not arbitration eligible. They're all getting paid for the rest of their lives. So the money at some point is going to catch up with you, and it just feels like it's caught up a little bit with the Braves. I think their payroll is still close to $200 million. So, like, this is just one of those seasons where it doesn't seem like they felt like they like the team that they have outside of Profar. All right, coming up next, we check in with Juan Soto and the New York Mets. Where will he bat in the lineup, and how do we feel about the rest of their lineup? What do you make of Starling Marte, who no longer seems to be an everyday player with that team too, and they're pitching as well. All right, so more fantasy sports today coming up next. Thanks for tuning in to me and George, and we'll be back right after these messages. Don't go away.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East. until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament, I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are. Ratings are through the roof. Profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Well, the biggest move of the offseason went to the New York Mets. They signed Juan Soto, but you knew that already. But what you don't know is maybe the rest of their lineup. This is projected courtesy of Fangraphs. Craig and George back with you as Lindor leads off. He has been a superstar virtually every year of his career. My gosh, how good is he? Juan Soto, Pete Alonso's back with the Mets. Brandon Nimmo, the star in waiting, maybe Mark Vientos, who was so good for them last year. Jesse Winker. Francisco Alvarez, McNeil had such a rough season last year. You would think there'd be some bounce back there. And then the Mets acquired Jose Siri to play the outfield. Really interesting, not pictured there, George. Once upon a time, probably 4 or 5 years ago, you couldn't get out of the second or third round without taking Starling Marte, right? 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, always really good with Pittsburgh, then Arizona, Miami. He was a really good player. Seems to be coming to the end of the line maybe as a starter there, which is a little bit surprising. And maybe it shouldn't be, but just the Mets just go out and do whatever they want. Cohen signs whoever they want. That's what they do. He says he wants more fans there this season. I think they're going to get it. This is a fantastic, George, 1, 2, 3. Fantasy, reality, starting lineup. This is a tough to beat in all of Major League Baseball to see those three names at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, hitting's not going to be the Mets' issue. They're going to hit, right? They're going to hit a lot. I don't think there's any doubt about that here. Everything you said is true there. Marte, but there's a lot of talk about Marte here that he's sort of been told, listen, do you want to be on the wrong end of a platoon or would you like us to find you another team? So how true that is, who knows? But he would be on the wrong end of the platoon here as the righty and a righty-lefty platoon with a Winker. I don't know how many left-handers you're going to see there, although I think teams will throw more left-handers at the Mets, hoping to neutralize Juan Soto, but the Mets, a lot of good right-handed bats. I mean, the Mets are going to hit. It doesn't matter who you throw. The Mets are going to hit. It should be a fun team hitting wise. They sort of remind me of the 80s Yankees, the late 80s Yankees, where boy, Yankees could hit, but they couldn't pitch. All right, a lot of overs is what I'm trying to tell you with the Mets. A lot of team overs, a lot of game overs here, a lot of 9-7 games coming up in their future here. But they'll be a fun team to watch, and they will draw more this year. The Mets started off terrible last year. They lose their first 5 games, and they never really turned it around to the second half here. So they'll definitely draw more here. But hey, Steve, if you want people to come to the games, might want to lower those prices. All right, and I don't mean just the parking, which they did this week. Parking was $60. They lowered it to $40. Well, maybe it's the ticket price and the concession price and everything else. If you want people to really come to the games here, family of four can't afford to go.
Yeah, no, sports have gone up a lot in every way, and that's just the nature of the beast. Juan Soto, where is he going in fantasy draft, George? Is he where exactly would you take Soto this season?
Well, we already discussed last week, right? Judge, Witt, Ohtani. There's your 1, 2, 3. Right. I think Soto can go anywhere after that. I have him more at 6. I think that's where he's going to go in the Mookie Betts range. Listen, he's not going to hit 40-plus home runs, right? Yankee Stadium certainly helped him last year, but he'll hit 32, 33. So you find there the average is going to be great. Everything's going to be great. He's going to driving 1,000,000 runs. He's going to score 1,000,000 runs here. So I have no problem with him from 4 on. I am at 6, but if someone drafts him at 4, I'm not arguing with you. I just wouldn't take him ahead of Witt, Ohtani, and Judge. That's it. After that, you're good.
Yeah, 27 home runs last season, George, for Mark Vientos at third base. Like that was one of the big surprises for the Mets last season. Can he do it again?
Boy, he was good last year. I like when young players, when they realize it, right? And he realized, he figured it out. Remember, Brett Beatty was supposed to be their third baseman. Brett Beatty got a brand new SUV yesterday from Juan Soto, by the way, for giving up 22. Good for him. By the way, Beatty, they need to trade him. He needs to get out of there, get to another team. So he gets a shock. It's not going to be with the Mets. I think Vientos will do it again, yeah. A little bit of sophomore jinx, sure. Baseball is a game of adjustments here. Teams have certainly looked at him, trying to find a hold in his swing during the offseason. Can he make those adjustments? I think he can. I think he's going to be a star. Wouldn't call him a star already. You got to do it again. But I think he's going to be a star yet. I think the Mets have themselves something there. That being said, not the greatest defensive third baseman. Not Rafael Devers, but he's not too far off that either.
Now, the starting rotation already took a hit with Frankie Montas being out for a period of time, but unfortunately for Frankie Montas, we've heard that before on teams that he's been on, so the Mets are going to have to pick up the pieces here. They already did with the acquisition of Clay Holmes. They've decided to make him into a starter. That's definitely one of the more polarizing fantasy stories of the season. Can Holmes pitch 130 innings in a season? Can he make 25 starts? It'll be fascinating to see. Kodai Senga, to me, George, one of the more underrated players. I think we just forgot about how good he was, missing some of last year. Sean Manaea, his best year ever, got him a multi-year contract. But I think, as you said, George, you look at these names and you're like, oof, like, I don't know. Like, is this good enough to get you to the trade deadline when you maybe acquire someone? And, hard to blame the Mets to do more. I'm not saying Montas was the savior here, but they felt like they at least had a number 3 or 4 starter here. I don't think we're going to see him for a while.
Montas, talk to me in June when we see him. Listen, Montas, he was a nothing anyway in my mind. Is it 3 or 4? I think it was being nice. I had more 4 or 5. A depth starter, which they have a ton of. All right, listen, Manaea. All right, can you do it again? Did you figure it out? I know the new arm slot. You were sort of more like Chris Sale. Okay, I need to see it again. Cody Senga, just stay healthy. I know you're a decent pitcher here. 2-3. After that, this is all depth. All right, Peterson, Holmes, Blackburn, Canning. You went to Montas in here. I would have liked to have seen one more good start. I would have loved Corbin Burns going here. I know Burns got a ton of money here, but it's not like Cohen can't afford it, right? He signs everybody else here. One more top starter, and I would have loved the Mets. Loved what they did here. But hey, you didn't do it. And if, like I said, this is the 80s Yankees. It'll work during the regular season. You can win a lot of 8-6 games during the regular season. Fine. It won't work during the playoffs. That's my only. It's not going to work during the playoffs. You're going to need. I think you're sort of hinting at the deadline. You're going to need that guy. Whoever comes loose from another team. And the Mets, by the way, have the prospects to get whoever they want. All right, they can go out and get anybody. Their farm system is good, so maybe that's what they're waiting for. See, who's going to come loose? Who's going to be this year's Garrett Crochet that they can go out and get by the deadline?
And in terms of a closer, second straight team, which is like back to back, we can actually name the closer on a baseball team. This one's easy for the Mets. In Edwin Diaz. And, look, Diaz is going to have his moments, George. We've seen it before. You've seen it before. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but, simply put, when he's on, it's over 100 strikeouts over the course of the season and 30 saves.
Yeah, struggled last season at times. He got replaced for a bit because first year of the injury, it can happen, right? Bottom line is I think Diaz is fine. I have no problem drafting him as my top closer. I have him ranked ahead of Iglesias, to let you know how I feel about Diaz.
Yeah, two really good closers there. All right, now we move on to a lineup where we'll educate you about. It's the Miami Marlins on deck. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter, and the league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are, ratings are through the roof, profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I guess this is the battle for second place in the NBA's MVP. It's been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was like minus 250 a couple months ago. Then last month it was 3-1. I mean, it's now up to minus 440 here.
Voter fatigue is a real thing, but there is a chance for him to maybe go on a hot tear, go on a stretch that maybe opens the conversation back up a little bit. I wouldn't say Shai's completely out of the woods just yet.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. What a difference a year makes for the Miami Marlins. This is a new look lineup, to say the least. A lot of young players, George, playing this season. It's going to look exponentially different than last year. Jazz Chisholm is gone. Luis Ariz is gone. Josh Bell is gone. Jake Berger is gone. Brian De La Cruz is gone. I mean, it is just a lot of players we saw at the end of last season that now have entrenched themselves as starters this season. But as you see there, right at the top, one of the more underrated players, George, in fantasy, hit for the cycle last year. Xavier Edwards had a fantastic year, and is going to get a lot of plate appearances this year. I don't know if, a lot of runs driven in, remains to be seen. Connor Norby came over in the trade with the Orioles. He'll bat second. Jesus Sanchez usually plays against all right-handed pitching, followed by Jonah Bride, Griffin Conine, Otto Lopez, who did a nice job for them last year. Stowers, another name in the mix. Dane Myers, another offensive name in the mix, got hurt last year. And then Nick Fortes. So, look, this is, let's call it a team that should be better, George, than they were a year ago. They start off the season 0-9, if I'm not mistaken. So I would expect a better season for the Marlins. But to what degree will still remains to be seen of how many players that you see here end up helping you in fantasy. And by the way, we didn't even talk about all of those players we traded. We just talked about those players, George, but they received so many players back in return, like De Los Santos from Arizona and Ramirez in the Jazz Chisholm trade. I would expect this to be a very fluid offensive situation with the Marlins.
Yeah, I would agree. And you look at this lineup, boy, you need to be a baseball fan to realize these names. This looks like a bad spring training, game here where you don't know half the people, right? You really need to know. Really do your study to realize the Marlins. You sort of have to remember what happened last year, as you already went down all the players that were traded, people that were brought in. Xavier Edwards is definitely someone who's on my radar. Connor Norby, one of the Baltimore Oriole prospects that were, Orioles are loaded. I think they should have traded more, by the way, and gotten better this year, but that's a story for another day here. Listen, when I think the Marlins, we're looking at the pitching staff. All right, all of those guys they have there, more than their hitters there. And that's always a story with the Marlins, right? It's a tough ballpark to hit in. It's not a hitter's ballpark at all. So I'm not going to be looking for their offense really, other than maybe that's at the middle infielder. Other than Edwards, probably the only starter I would think about as having as my shortstop. Everything after that is more depth players for me. Sort of a wait and see what I have there. Yeah. Are they going to hit? Are they going to be replaced? Are they going to be full-time players? They're a team. It's almost like all scout team on my fantasy league, right?
You have to watch and
see what they're doing.
Yeah. No, you have to watch and see, because I would say that playing time will be limited to the players who are performing. As an example, you saw Jonah Bride, who was really good for them in the second half of the season on that list. But in the offseason, George, they did make a small trade to acquire Matt Mervis, who once upon a time was a top prospect with the Cubs. So depending on how Bride does, maybe Mervis gets some opportunities there, in addition to a lot of the young players that they acquired in those trades. But as George alluded to, the pitching is the key here. And Sandy Alcantara, who will start this weekend for the Marlins in Jupiter, and then will start opening day for them, is back once again. The expectation is pretty much, George, full go from what I'm hearing here. So I thought cap him out 150 innings. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I think he may be full go. Edward Cabrera, who I know they still like a lot, it was a little bit of up, a little bit of down, but when he's on, has been as dominant as anybody. Ryan Weathers was a nice surprise. And then you have Max Meyer. And I got to tell you, I mean, they didn't, this was the only signing they had in the offseason, major league signing, major league contract. But Cal Quantrill, I thought that was a nice signing for them and actually fits that ballpark perfectly. Fantasy purposes, I understand, George, very different. You want Alcantara because he's going to give you a lot of innings. You can count on him every fifth day. But I think the most interesting name that we haven't talked about yet here is Yuri Perez, who's going to come back at some point, June or July. A nice stash, I think, in a lot of leagues.
It's funny you should mention that. I told you last week, I have Alcantara in my home league, and I can keep him around 21. And it's either I keep one of Alcantara, DeGrom, and Clanahan, one of those guys. And Alcantara's the guy I'm going to go with here. I also have Yuri Perez in that league. I could keep him as well, but I can only keep 3, so I can't keep Perez. But he's another guy. Yeah, at the end of your leagues, if you have IL slots, DL slots, whatever you want to call it, your league, draft him. You don't know what's going to happen in June, July when he comes back here. I like Cabrera. I haven't given up on Cabrera. Even Max Meyer. That's what the Marlins, they always have these top starting pitchers. We just get a few more of these guys to develop. They'd be something here. Craig, quick question. Alcantara, will he be with the Marlins all season?
Boy, I don't know the answer to that. I hope so. He's been with he's the longest tenured Marlin almost of all time. So I hope so, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how the season goes. It was really, non-committal on that subject, so remains to be seen. I will tell you this: the Marlins may have this closer in waiting named Jesus Tinoco. He's not being drafted in any fantasy league. I would grab that kid at the end of my fantasy drafts. I think he's got a chance to close some games for them this year. We'll be back with Hour 2 next.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You watch playoff games. The playoffs are all that matter. The league's got an issue. They just don't want to admit it. They brag about how huge they are, how global they are. Ratings are through the roof. Profits are through the roof. I mean, between the NBA and NHL lying about their ratings and the money they make, I'm sick and tired of it.
Pharrell, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.